Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom Into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our fourth and final night of Stars of Pinot Noir. I'm actually just, thinking about this. Maybe we'll just do Stars of Pinot for every Thursday going forward for the rest of our life, because we love this topic. We are learning a lot. We have amazing producers, and there's a lot of wine to sell out there in the world. And we are very fortunate to be able to gather some of the best in the business on tonight's Zoom. I've been really proud of the wine quality thus far. I think tonight is going to be an awesome night we've got people zooming in from all over the country, from Chicago, Florida, Oregon, all over Los Angeles and Southern California. Ventura County is represented tonight, and down into San Diego. So pretty exciting, and that's what I love about doing this. In fact, we're going to add one more location. We're going to start off tonight going to New Zealand, and I believe they're live with us tonight. I want to make sure of that. Simon, are you there already, buddy?
We're called Finn. Sorry, just using.
There you are.
Anna's account.
That's right. Good to see you.
Yeah, so we're on a different account, but we're here.
What time is it there today?
About a bit after 2. So in the afternoon on a Friday, last day of the week. It's thank God it's Friday moment. So we're getting ready for the weekend.
Cool. We call it Casual Friday around here.
It's always casual here. Sometimes we have a formal one just for a bit of fun. But
just to shake it up.
Yeah.
Well, you have been a fantastic guest on our Zoom before, Simon, and we are super thrilled. If you have not seen the dynamic duo here, they're representing Astrolab down in New Zealand, and they are live on the Zoom. How super cool is that? And we're going to get started right now. First, before I do so, I just want to remind all the producers to help us out. We have about an 8-minute window scheduled for you. We went pretty long a couple of times on this particular series, so I'm just going to throw it out there. We're going to try to move at a nice pace, but not rush you. Okay?
Sounds fair. You keep me on time, please, Ian.
I think, Simon. We're going to go from Marlborough, New Zealand, up to Oregon, then down to Santa Rita Hills, then across over into Santa Lucia Highlands, or pretty close. The grapes are grown very close to there. Courtin is going to be in the Central Coast as well. And then we'll go up to the Russian River, and a really fun lineup. And please use the chat box tonight. Say hi to people. Make some ruckus. Make the winemakers know that you've tasted their wine, and they throw down some tasting notes if you want. If you want to go all poetic on the tasting notes, I encourage that as well. And Simon and your lovely daughter, which must be Finn.
No.
This is actually Arabella, we're called. Yeah. Arabella's our marketing manager, and she's the person in charge of all the branding and so forth. But yeah, we're a part of a family team. Down here in Marlborough, it's really all about climate. All our wines, as people know from our Sauvignon Blanc, they're all fortunately intense in aroma and flavour due to our beautiful light.
Yeah, so if we just jump to the next slide, maybe.
Yeah, come to the next slide.
Just in case anyone doesn't quite know where we are in New Zealand, let alone Marlborough. And so New Zealand, just at the edge of the Pacific, right down the bottom there. And then Marlborough, we're top of what we call the South Island on the east coast, just where that big A is, the green A.
It's a magic spot where we are. There's high mountains to the west, which keep most of the moist winds away, and high mountains to the south, which keep the cold Antarctic winds away. We have generally clear skies and brilliant quality of light, and a long, cool growing season, which allows all our grape varieties to develop nice flavour on the vine, retain a lot of acidity, and to just have an expressiveness, which is, I guess, best known around the world through our Sauvignon Blanc. But the same climate that helps our Sauvignons be so striking is great for Riesling and Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Gewürztraminer, all the sort of more aromatic white wines. But it loves Pinot Noir. We're fantastically blessed with our climate, I think, and there's some magic sites as well. Most of our soils are pretty new in geological terms. We're a country that's been thrust out of the sea through earthquake activity. We're much like California in terms of the big fault line running down the island, the South Island in particular.
Simon, is it fair to say that there's parts of the year where the sun almost doesn't go down?
Down further south, it gets they could be playing down the bottom of the South Island, and the height of summer, they'll be able to sort of play tennis without lights up to about 10:30 at night. But we're actually, where we are in Marlborough is not hugely different in latitude to where Madrid is in Spain, but the climate differences are that we're surrounded by water. We don't have a nearby big continental mass, so we don't get that, like say Spain would get, that hot air coming off the African continent. We just are surrounded by the temperate sort of Pacific Ocean, which means we don't get the highs and the lows. We don't get extremes of cold or extremes of heat. And it tends to be very favorable for growing, for fruit in general, but certainly great for winemaking. It just allows us to get a lot of accumulation of flavour without absolute heat to bake that flavour back out again. Here's a shot of the family. This is the family team and some of the prospective team. They're all some Libby holding in the middle there with my wife Jane. Libby's our general manager. Finn's Arabella's partner and works in the business. And some prospective winemakers there that we are looking forward to bringing on in the fullness of time. And that's at our property in Grosvenor. Next slide would be, I'm not sure what you got there following. Oh yeah, that's just our home property. That's where the sort of the Astrolabe has its spiritual home, our little block of Riesling and Chardonnay, a little bit of Pinot Noir, and our much loved dog Bob, you see there. Nice. One of our old pet sheep. My wife, who used to run the business, has now stepped back a little. What have we got next?
Yeah.
So this gives you a bit more of an idea. Zooming into Marlborough, we have 3 main growing regions, but in terms of the Pinot Noir we've got in front of us, the 2016, most of it comes from the northernmost area that we call the Wairau Valley, but in particular off this southern hillsides of the Wairau Valley, which are clay hillsides facing to the north, which in the southern hemisphere, it means that you're facing towards the sun. And in a cool climate like that, you want to maximize your sunlight. We plant our rows north-south, so we get good light on both sides of the canopy. And where we can, with Pinot Noir, we like to be angling those slopes that we plant on to the north. We get a wee bit too down in the southern area called Kikaringu, which is unique to Astrolabe. We're the only ones taking Pinot Noir down in that area, and that's the first part of Marlborough that starts to see sort of limestone, which adds another sort of dimension. Clay and limestone, the soils that really play a part in this wine.
Yeah, and so Marlborough has those 2 large valleys, the Wairau and the Awatiri, and you can see a wee shot of the Wairau River there. There are these quite broad braided rivers that used to flow to change path across the valleys. So they're nice wide valleys sort of surrounded by hills.
Yeah, so for Pinot we go for the hills for our planting. What have we got next on that slide? Oh yeah, here's a shot looking down the coast, down to Kikaringu. For those of you in California and Oregon, same ocean on our shore there, the Pacific Ocean, just the other side of it. You can see some fairly high mountains towards the back, but you're down there. It's an old, beautiful old limestone area with maritime climate, which sort of gives us a longer growing season than normal. And the fruit from there is lovely and mineral.
Yeah, this shot's actually just taken after a reasonably large earthquake we had. And you can just see a little sort of crest of white on one of the mountains in the back, and that is some exposed limestone. So you can really see the soil coming through that white rock.
So just talking about my wine style, for me, Pinot Noir is all about food friendliness. It's about good acidity and minerality if I can get it. 2016 was a great year, as we had, for me, good years tend to have a slightly more mineral feel to them. I don't like the muscular tannic years as much as years like the 16. The berries are slightly bigger than normal, and that means despite the winemakers' efforts, you don't get too much extraction and too much heaviness in the wine. They tend naturally towards a lightness of touch. We get a beautiful sense of perfume coming through, particularly off the Kikaringu area, where we get a lovely lift of violets and red cherry and a little bit of a light strawberry. But off the clay hillside on the Wairau, we get more of the sort of the more visceral sort of characters, the red meat and the darker cherry, black cherry, and a little bit of plum. I want to make my Pinots as much as possible wines that sit nicely with food. So if I can avoid turning them into a big red wine, that's my goal. I want Pinot to stand aside from other reds of the world as being a more svelte and supple wine, and more elegantly structured than things like sort of big cabs and zins and things like that, or Shiraz from Australia. So we have a natural advantage here. I think it's just the way the weather is, and the lovely flowering we have in our December that usually sets us more fruit on the vine than we know we need to crop the vine in balance. So it allows us to go through quite early in the growing season, drop fruit back to leave the fruit that is on the vine at harvest time in a very narrow band of maturity. So when I go through the vineyards tasting the fruit, I can be very comfortable that everything is in this tight band. It is just so where I want it for the wine that I have in my mind to make from there, which is a great asset. I mean, it's always hard to do that if you have set very little fruit at flowering, but if you've set more than you need at flowering, it gives you that tool, winemaking tool, to manipulate the crop and get rid of the later ripening or early ripening bunches and leave the core zone just in the right space. So these things make Marlborough perfect for Pinot as a winemaker. In the winery, we take it in by generally small hand-picked fruit. Don't use a lot of stems in our fermentation. It's all open top vats, fermented very traditionally, wild yeast, worked by hand to keep the cap wet and to make sure we don't get too much heat in the dry skins in the top of the ferment. Extract a bit of colour as well. But yeah, very much traditional old methods. Goes to barrels after pressing for about 10 months.
Fantastic. It's showing great. Now we have both the 16 and the 17 at our business at the Merchant of Wine. Only a few bottles of the 16 remain, but we do just get the 17 in stock. How do the vintages differ?
17's a little bigger, I think it's fair to say. The 16 is a really hot, dry early season. Then we got a lovely rain late in the growing season, which helped size up the berries and meant the wines didn't get as big and muscular as they may have otherwise. 17 is probably our most successful wine of recent years, vintages in terms of commentator comment recognition through the wine writing fraternity.
Okay.
There's a lovely gaminess, really get a sense of the hot, fast sort of fermentation, a few interesting sort of reductive notes, which I quite like in my winemaking coming through in the 17, and a lovely juiciness to it. I guess they're both lovely in their own way. I think at the moment for drinking, I'm preferring the 16, but I think the 17, probably in an American market in particular, will probably be the one more preferred because it is slightly bigger. And I think the reference point for a lot of American drinkers is slightly bigger than it is for people maybe here or in places like the UK, but they're all variations on a theme. They don't go all over the place. It's just, I'm just talking about subtle differences. We love to see those subtle vintage differences, but stylistically, the house style doesn't change much. And we try and not over extract. We try and keep everything sort of softly through the system and put together a wine which has definition and structure, but has a sort of a supple palate and, as I say, sits nicely with food and age as well.
Well, we've had the pleasure of tasting your wine many times and getting to spend some time with you and your family. So we thank you very much for that. It's always great to see you. How did you fare in the difficult 2021 vintage?
We are like everybody else, crops are way down, particularly for Pinot Noir. So it's going to be a very small production for us of Pinot Noir. with our main wine we make is Sauvignon Blanc, and we had enough of that to meet our market requirements. So we're a bit luckier than some. The fruit is all very good. It was a lovely growing season, again, early, but good high quality, and we feel like we're in quite a good spot as a business ourselves, but it has been hard on some of our colleagues who are struggling to find wine to keep all their markets going, and they're starting to have to make difficult decisions about who they supply and who they can't supply during the course of the season.
Yeah, and part of that wider, I guess, geographic spread that we have from where we source our fruit does help with that. So different parts of the Marlborough region were affected differently. Each valley has its own climate and responds differently to the weather conditions.
Yeah, we'd probably have the widest spread of vineyard sources of anyone in Marlborough, and it does help both with mitigating seasonal sort of crop risks, but also adding interest to the blend and fullness and completeness to the blend. So it's a real advantage I think we have as a little company. But we're in good heart, and we just like to say to the folks who are making wine that are going to be speaking soon in California and Oregon, good luck with the fire season. I know Rudy must be anxiously watching that. I hope you steer clear of all that sort of stuff, and we'll be thinking about you and all your weather. The wild weather around the world is of concern to us all. We've just had a flood in Marlborough over the last weekend, which was a 100-year event and has caused some vineyard damage. Fortunately not to us, but we're seeing the impact of a changing climate, which we believe here to be exacerbated by mankind, and we are starting to see erratic weather even in our part of the world. We're a bit luckier here because we are so sort of isolated that we don't get some of the big swings of floods and heat waves, but we do get a wee bit of the same. But we're thinking of you guys, and good luck for the harvest.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. And your wine is gorgeous. It's even though the wine is now technically 5 vintages old, it's really into a perfect drinking zone. And you know, the time that these wines spend in the bottle, it's also under screw cap, so it's really in a preserved state and really advancing nicely. We do have a little bit of that 16 left, and we'll move into the 17 vintage on our website. And I wanted to also let you know to the wineries that are with us, if you're on our website tonight, all the wineries from the first 4 nights are available on our website at probably the lowest prices in their history on our website. So it's a really good moment to grab some. And some of the wineries you're able to buy directly from, and they're going to be extra appreciative of you joining them. And we really thank all the winemakers that are here today. We're raising some money for charity as well through a silent auction. It's actually a digital auction, and Greg Gurr is here with us. Greg is with the charity. And Greg, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you, Ian?
Good.
Fourth night. I'm excited.
Yeah, good.
But the auction's doing great. I chimed into the chat box there that we got $500 overnight. Some people were laying in bed and doing some bidding, so we love that. And yeah, we're going for a goal of to raise $3,000 with this auction. So a couple more bids, and we should be there shortly.
We're going to keep this auction open until 9 o'clock tomorrow night.
Tomorrow, I made a mistake. I said Thursday, but it's Friday at 9 p.m.
Right. Thursday, so Friday at 9 p.m. We're going to go Friday night, and we'll close the auction at 9 o'clock. Yep. So if you're involved in the auction, just take a look at it. I do always recommend to bid early, and if you get outbid, you just raise money for the charity. So it's a good way to get the better price and to secure that spot, because the next price up is a little bit more expensive.
Right.
Fend off some other folks. So,
and it's super easy to bid, you know, and getting the bottles. You know, Ian's got a couple bottles there from some of the wineries, but other than that, I connect the winners with the wineries and they ship it directly to your door. So super easy.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. We're going to continue on, and to our friends at Astrolab, thank you for being here. And if you want to participate, you're welcome to. But it's almost 5 o'clock down there. It's time for a cocktail. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's right. We'll say goodbye, and
Thank you.
thanks for having us.
Our pleasure, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Let's move on up to Oregon, and we're going to hang out with Timothy Malone. Hi, Timothy.
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you.
You as well.
Hi, Tim. Hi, Tim.
Hey,
Look at that.
Justin, what's going on?
Nice to see you. Haven't
You
seen you in a
too.
week.
Yeah, right? I didn't realize one of my employees was going to be on.
Yeah, I know. We had a little hunch that she might get involved tonight, so we're happy to see you. They're in Chicago, right?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Well, yeah, we are happy to see you both, and thank you, Tim, for joining us. We've had the pleasure of having J. Christopher Wines at many of our events over the past 20 years, and there's always something new to learn from you guys, something new and explorative that you're doing. How are things going for you, first of all?
Pretty good. We had some heat concerns earlier in the season, but we seem to have fended well through that, and assuming we don't have any fire issues, we're set up for a good harvest. So
Can you smell the fires up in Oregon?
from last vintage? Yeah,
like,
there is quite a bit of damaged fruit for sure.
And how about the big fire that's up there burning right now?
That one is in the southeastern part of the state. That's probably 10 or 12 hours from me, and I believe the winds are blowing that smoke eastward. So yeah, we're
That
blue
smoke
skies.
is actually in Chicago.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of the east winds carry all that stuff into the center of the country.
Wowzer. Well, let's go into our PowerPoint and take a look. And we're on wine number 2, J. Christopher. We're also tasting is it Medici?
Medici, yeah.
Okay.
Either pronunciation. I don't think either one's incorrect. But yeah, we are a winery based out of the Chehalem Mountains in Oregon. We're in the Willamette Valley. We specialize in both Dundee Hills and Chehalem Mountains AVAs. We're old world style, we like to say. We like to maintain acid in our wines, so we pick earlier than some other people. We also do native fermentation for both primary and malolactic fermentation. We don't do any finering or filtering, so we over vintage our wines. So the wines are pretty hands off. We don't really try to get in the way. Really, where the craft comes in is in blending. So we also have a tasting room in the Chehalem Mountains. It's this beautiful place. This picture doesn't quite show the beautiful view we have, but it's very picturesque. Beautiful place. We're located by Bald Peak, which is kind of central Chehalem Mountains, right near the town of Newburgh. We're about an hour southwest of Portland. But it's remarkable place. I'm originally from New York, and I moved out to Oregon specifically to make Oregon Pinot Noir. I ended up down in California for a brief stint for a little while, but realized how much I loved Oregon and moved back up. You could probably go on to the next slide and we'll get on. So this is a good example of how we like to do Old World. We actually have 5 underground caves. Okay. So we don't need to use any heating or air conditioning. We maintain a very moist environment, and it allows us really just to not have to top as often either. So like I said, we're located in Oregon. We're in the Willamette Valley, which is the northwestern part of the state. Originally the North American Plate came along, which is now the Cascade Range, and slammed into some islands on the coast, formed a little valley, which was underwater at one point, got lifted up. So we have sedimentary soils. That's about 50 million years ago. And then fast forward a little bit, and we had a bunch of volcanic material that put lava and basalt covering the sedimentary materials. And then you move a little bit farther in time, up to about 10 to 15,000 years ago, we had a series of floods that came through from Missoula, Montana. Large ice glacier dams that broke and brought down huge swaths of water and washed away some of that volcanic material. So we've got very ancient sedimentary material exposed in some vineyards, and relatively young volcanic material, generally at the higher elevations where it had not been washed away from the floods. But Medici Vineyard is one of the vineyards that we farm ourselves. We lease it since 2015. It's about 8 minutes east of the winery. It is planted in 1976 by Hal Medici. He bought the property, I believe, in 64, but it is, so it's in excess of 40 years old. It's own rooted, and we're fortunate we do not have phylloxera in the vineyard, at least not yet. We do have it in Oregon, so we're feeling lucky every year that the vineyard's clean. But it's a beautiful winery. Hal Medici got all of the clonal material from Dick Erath, so it's all Pomard clone from Dick Erath, which is pre-heat treated genetic material. So it's got some really interesting characters to it. Yeah, here's a good example of the winery in Medici Vineyard, just due east of it. It's about 550 to 750 feet elevation. We are a relatively maritime climate. We do have a very small mountain range which separates us from the ocean, but we do get a lot of the Pacific influence, and it really helps keep the temperature from getting too outrageous. So we have cooler nights, can get down to typically in the 50s, 55, 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Generally, we stay in the high 80s, low 90s in July and August. Occasionally, we can get up to 100 degrees. We did have a very bizarre weather pattern recently, but that was a 1 in 1,000-year event, so we're told. Set some new heat records. But as you can see, here's a picture of the vineyard looking down from the top. It's some older vines. It's farmed organically. We don't use any herbicides. We use an in-row cultivator. It's a beautiful vineyard. It's a really majestic place, and we're extremely fortunate to be working with it. Hal Medici is still around at the age of 91, and I think he's happy that we're taking care of it now, and I feel like we're doing the right thing. But so this wine, 2018, is here's a great soil of our dirt. So we have the elevation for this vineyard is above 450 feet, which is approximately where we had the flood line. So the lower portion of this vineyard is 550 feet. So it's all volcanic soil. You can see those rocks in there. That's all basalt that hasn't broken down yet. And also the red color you'll see is actually oxidized iron. So it's very iron-rich soil. It's very, very good at draining, but if there's enough clay in there to hold enough moisture to keep the vines healthy through our dry summers. But 2018 was a great year. It was slightly warmer than average, but not a hot year by any means. It was quite honestly a very easy harvest. We had no weather issues, no rain. We were able to pick at our leisure. Everything just kind of came in as it ripened. It was nice. Usually we have rain events, and we're always struggling to get the fruit in every year, and it's a madhouse. But 2018 was pretty easy as far as Oregon harvests go. This wine is our typical production method, so 18 to 20 months in barrel, native fermentation. But one of the common characteristics we use to describe Pinot grown in Oregon on volcanic soils is dusty cherry. You often will get cherry characteristics along with a kind of a dusty minerality. Our wines tend to be a little reductive, although this isn't showing any H2S at the moment, but we do make wines in a reductive manner. We give them a little bit of oxygen up front during cold soak, but we do open top fermenters, and then we go into a fairly reductive environment, just trying to keep the wines fresh. But that's about it. It's a pretty great place to make wine. I gotta say, I love it. I've been up here since 2006 now. I worked with Jay Christopher from 2006 through to 2015, where I left for a few years, and I came back last year as the winemaker. And it's a pretty magical place. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else.
Cool. Is there a difference between the label that we're looking at here and the label that says Old Vines?
So there's a section of the vineyard that is planted in 1976, and then it was planted all the way up through 1988. So the Medici that you see here in the picture is a combination of fruit from all over that vineyard. The Old Vines is specifically a few barrels just from the Old Vine block, which I believe was only a few barrels. But we also have some Riesling up there as well from the 1976 planting, which is really special as well. We do a dry German GG style Riesling out of it that we age in a 3,000 liter cask for 2 years on lees. And that's very coveted Riesling as well for as far as Oregon goes. Everybody's clamoring to get it, but we're very fortunate to have it.
Are you guys making Sauvignon Blanc as well?
Yep, J. Christopher as a brand, yeah, we've been known kind of as the pioneer of Sauvignon Blanc in Oregon.
Yeah.
We started off a very reductive method with stainless steel, and then we've moved on to including concrete eggs, as well as 500 and 600 liter acacia barrels. So we've expanded our program a little bit. Not a huge part of our program in the grand scheme of things. We're about a 10,000 case winery, and we're making 200 cases of Sauvignon Blanc, give or take. So, but it is fun to work with.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This is a beautiful, and it's got some great dense, fleshy character to it, but it's really restrained at the same time and has some wonderful balance to it. Just a awesome example of Oregon Pinot. And this on the brochure is $60 retail.
Sounds right.
And folks on the Zoom tonight are encouraged to join the J. Christopher wine list. And you guys have like a club or something that you guys do for the members?
Yeah, we do have a club email list. I don't have a lot of that information in front of me, but I know we do. All that information is available at the website.
Okay, great. Well, it's always good to catch up with J. Christopher. You guys do things very well, and you hire some wonderful people to work for you.
Thank you, Ian.
Good seeing you, Justin. You better get back here quick. We need some help.
I'll be there on Monday.
All right.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
And let's take a look at the audience for a second before we move into wine number 3. We're going to go to Amplos in just a moment. But let's see who's out there that we could say hi to. Crystal, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Ian. How are you?
Awesome. So good to see you.
I'm happy to see you. Hi, everybody.
A lot of people hiding this week. I don't know. Maybe people are tired. They're working hard. Reality's starting to touch all of our lives. Going back to work. The markets are opening. Melvin J., how's the accounting world?
They're keeping me busy. I'm supposed to be off for the rest of the year, but somehow they're not letting me go. But it is what it is. Apparently, I never learned how to say no.
Well, I'm glad to see you both. Thank you for joining us, David K. I see you on the Zoom. I don't know if that means that you were able to get your tasting kit that GSO didn't deliver today, so you had to go to the warehouse to get it.
I actually had to drive to the guy's house, and he wasn't very nice. A really interesting experience with that.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I went to my 10 minutes in the backyard. That's when the guy showed up, and I called them all, and they said, yeah, he'll pick it up at 6 o'clock in Ventura. And I went over there, and the guy went home. He took the package home. So I'm like, well, now what? So I said, can I drive to his house? And can I pick it up? We'll go pick it up. He gave me his address right downtown Ventura, and he came out and he put the box in front of me on the ground. He said, leave me alone. And I went, all right, thanks for nothing.
Wow.
It's like,
fantastic.
Wow. Yeah, I guess he was having a bad day.
Unbelievable.
That was quite an adventure. So we just got home.
Damn it. Well, we're moving into wine number 3, David.
Okay.
Why don't you just completely pound wines 1 and 2?
Yeah, and I'll let you guys get after it. And
I'm glad you made it. Sorry about the.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move now down to Santa Barbara. We're going to go to Santa Rita Hills. Peter Work is on the Zoom. I see him. How you doing, Peter?
I am doing awesome. How are you doing, Ian?
I'm not quite awesome, but I'm feeling better every second. I actually taught a class this morning at 5:30 a.m. to a bunch of international.
Wow.
I was the only one on the West Coast the next time zone ahead of me was East Coast, and then we were in India, we were in Germany, we were in Japan. It was crazy. It was a pretty elite group, so it was really a wonderful gathering. But that's an amazing way to start the day. So if I look like I got hit in the face, it's because I'm a little tired.
Yeah, you know what? I did a bunch of virtual tasting shows with my home country. I did about 10 of them or so in Denmark. And it's always great, Denmark at 5 o'clock. The problem is it was 8 o'clock here in my backyard. So I had to get up 8 o'clock in the morning, get my coffee out of my hand and pour a glass of wine, try to look excited about Pinot Noir at 8 in the morning. It's interesting, but it works.
Well,
hey, Ian, let me just start out by saying I cannot thank you enough, because I've been on a bunch of your shows, sometimes pouring wines, but also a number of them tasting, like what you did with your Italian series and your port wines and that stuff, is that the way that you have been keeping things alive throughout the whole virus thing. Thank you so much for doing what you've been doing. It's been awesome. Very entertaining.
Thank you so much. It's so great to, I mean, gosh, that's so flattering, and it's wonderful to have you there. And thank you for answering the questions on the chat, Peter. You're always so generous with your comments and stuff, and it's just really nice. And your dog is beautiful too, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of the new features in Zoom. And instead of just putting a picture, you can put a video in the background. So some people may think that it's a video, but it's actually the real thing back there. And later on, the dogs might start fighting. I'm sure they'll get noisy. We'll get over it somehow. But hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Cheers to everybody out there. Have some Ampelos. Cheers.
Thank you. Let's put some Ampelos in our glass. And Peter, tell us what's happening up there in Santa Barbara. Where things going well right now, or is harvest looking, or vintage looking pretty good so far?
I mean, Ian, it's really interesting. We were just up in Willamette here a few weeks ago, where we have like 110 degrees. We are visiting J.K. Carrier up there, and it was darn hot up there. We have not been that hot down here. We had like a warm day in January. It was 95 degrees, the warmest we ever seen in January. I was scared about butt break. And then we have cold February, cold March, cold April, even into May it was cold. So it delayed all our flowering and our fruit set. And then suddenly it got a little bit warm again. So I think we're right now about 2 weeks behind average harvest time. So a little bit behind. But I mean, I'm sitting out here, but I'm actually going to put on a shirt because I'm really freezing out here. But it's looking good. It's looking good so far.
Beautiful. Well, let's go to our...
Okay, let's talk a little bit about things. Just pick up the next slide. I'm going to take you guys through a little bit of story here about our background. So in the 99, Rebecca and I, we had a crazy dream about owning a vineyard and a winery. We had absolutely no clue about what we were doing. We couldn't keep our house plants alive. But nevertheless, we bought a beautiful 82 acres up here in Santa Barbara County in what later on became the Santa Rita Hills. One of the things that's very unique, and you've seen it many times, Ian, when you've been up here, is that we have this proximity to the ocean, the cold Pacific Ocean, that gives us this wonderful cooling effect. Like the fog you see there in the middle picture is not unusual. We wake up in the morning in the summer, we can't see any sunrise because the fog from the ocean is still there. And 8, 9, 10 o'clock, it'll just blow away and there'll be sunshine for the rest of the day. We have 6 months with absolutely no rain. That's a growing season. We never see rain. We still remember a day in June of 2011 where it rains. But we got into this, bought our 82 acres, and then planted in 2001 in the bottom left corner with Bacchus, the first vines that were planted initially 15 acres. And in 2004, we added another 10 acres. So behind me on the video or whatever it is, I got 25 acres of vineyard planted. You'll see what the different varietals are a little bit later. Let's do the next slide, please. In regards to the way that we, let's switch. Great, thank you. So one of the things that we wanted to do from the beginning, Rebecca and I, was we really wanted to understand things from the bottom up. So we got involved in the farming side of it. really understand the planting, working with soil, cover crop, and understanding the vine's cycle throughout the year, getting to the point of harvest. We are living right here on the ranch. We take care of it. We are the vineyard managers. And we also learn to make these different decisions you make as you go through the winemaking process. Most importantly, how to make the right decision about when to pick the grapes. It's all done by senses and detailed evaluation that the two of us do together. Top right corner is one of my favorite pictures. It was the 8th of September, 2004, where we could harvest the first bucket of grapes. A very, very special moment in our life where we finally could get some grapes in from the investments of money and time that we have done over the years. Very hands-on, bottom left corner is a great picture of harvest time. We harvest, of course, by hand. Not only that, but we do hand sorting in the vineyard. We have a mobile sorting table. So we make sure that all the grapes that come in are as perfect as possible from the moment that we pick them, where we can still see if there are any little bird or bee damage or whatever, and that gets sorted out right away. We believe in small production, hands-on involvement, and constant process improvement, constant experimentation. On our Pinot Noir, like what you have in the glass, is that some of the blocks that it's from, we actually have interplanted Pinot Noir with Pinot Grigio. Experimentation we did working together with Roger Bolton from UC Davis, where we actually have about 4% Pinot Gris planted in the middle of Pinot Noir vineyards. Same reason why you have like Viognier together with Syrah and Côte Rocher to create a better color binding through co-pigmentation, co-fermentation. Another experiment we are doing is we're doing a lot of co-fermentation with clones, where we take and pick different clones of Pinot Noir. We have 7 different clones here at the ranch. We pick them at the same time when we can and let them and crush them together and let them ferment together to find out which clones of Pinot Noir actually like to ferment together. Where do we see that kind of synergy coming out of the co-fermentation? The barrel in the bottom right corner has got an example of that one. I'll take the next slide when you have a chance, please. So here's what the ranch looks like. I'm sitting in the house smack in the middle of the picture there, 82 acres with 25 acres planted. The burgundy colored blocks on this is about 17 acres, of course, in Pinot Noir. And you'll see after Pinot Noir has little numbers or names, 115, Pomar 4, etc. We heard some of those clones already mentioned by the previous 2 presenters here. And as I said, there are 7 different clones that we have. The wine you're drinking now is a 2019 Pinot Noir. And this is our Santa Rita Hills blend. It typically retails for $25 a bottle. We believe it's the lowest priced Pinot Noir from Santa Rita Hills on the market. We've had this steady price philosophy. We haven't changed the price since we first started selling wines in 2006. That's 15 years ago. But we can keep the price at that level. This is about 10 months in the barrel. We used about 25% new French oak, unfined, unfiltered. And I'll cover a little bit more about the winemaking philosophy as we go forward. But I think it's just a beautiful expression of Santa Rita Hills with our cold climates, from the proximity to the ocean, and this great cherry cola that in my mind is so much the signature of what Santa Rita Hills Pinot Noir is all about. Let's take the next picture, please. So what is very important for us is our farming philosophies. Because of that, we decided in 2006, 15 years ago, to convert to organic farming and biodynamic farming. In 2009, after 3 years of conversion process, we got certified in those programs. And furthermore, in 2008, we jumped into a new pilot project on sustainability certification, the Sustainability in Practice, or the SIP program. And with that, in 2009, we were the first vineyards, at least in the United States, to have a triple certification, I call it. So certified organic, biodynamic, sustainable. Very, very important to our farming principles here. I'm getting more and more involved in it. There's a big program, CSWA, the California White Sustainable Program, that I'm so involved in that actually a few months ago I took over. I'm actually the chairman of the board of the program. We do believe it's the largest sustainability program in the world. We certified about 3,000 vineyards so far, And we have over 11 million cases that carries our logo. So it's very important principles.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We practice all the biodynamic principles. I do it myself. So of course, all the crystals, Carmenio, etc. We follow the biodynamic calendar. But Ian, you know me, I can talk about this for a while. So let's jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. I'll have a little sip here.
I mean, you are, I think, one of the only wineries I know that is you're triple certified.
Yeah, and I believe so. That we're looking into the new program for regenerative, because it's kind of a combination of sustainable and organic, but I think it's a great program as well. A couple of slides from the winery. Rebecca and I are the winemakers. We don't foot stomp everything. Most of the time, Rebecca's up there feeding clusters into our destemmer, but we do believe in very, very hands-on winemaking. We make about 4,000 cases per year that we are personally involved in. I was out today moving barrels around on the trailer of my truck, and tomorrow I'll be continuing that work. We also believe packaging is a very important part of sustainability. We started years ago doing ingredient listing on our back labels. There are a few wineries that do that today, and hopefully there'll be more, because we think we should be honest with our consumers about what is in the bottle that they're drinking. The glass that we're using is made by a glass manufacturer in the United States, as opposed to most wineries are using Chinese, Mexican, Chilean glass. They're made with 65% recycled glass material. We are using DM corks, which is also a great way of using the cork material. We don't use foils on our labels. It's a waste of metal. We don't want to waste that. And this is an example of how we constantly try to really look into how we can do things as good as possible and as environmentally conscious as possible. And we'll do the next slide here, please. So we like to stay in touch with people. The whole Corona has been like a challenging thing for all of us. Ian, you and your guys have done an amazing job. We jumped into virtual tastings. We've done like virtual barrel tasting, clone blendings. We have so far done right around 90 virtual tasting shows. Hopefully we don't need to go back to it, because we're getting a little tired of doing Zoom shows ourselves. But it's been a really great way of connecting with people out there. And for those of you guys that are tasting the wines out there, please stay in touch with us as we go forward. I think I just did a posting on Facebook today, Instagram. I'm doing one tonight again. And we just really like to stay in touch with everybody out there. My main goal for the rest of my life is to promote good, conscious farming and make sure that when you buy a glass of wine out there, when you buy a bottle of wine out there, that you focus on buying wine that's made with the right principles: organic, biodynamic, sustainable, regenerative. Again, Ian, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, sir. Awesome job. And the dog is being very well behaved. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it happens sometimes. They were fighting a little bit earlier, but maybe they'll get back into it. It's usually when the sunset comes, it calms them down a little bit. So they've been good. They're good guys. They're good guys.
This 19 Pinot that we're tasting today, you're telling me this is only $25?
Yeah, it's been $25 since we first made it in 2007. We started selling it in 2009. We don't have any plans to increase I mean, here's the deal, is that we have had some increases in prices, and it happens all the time. Our labor out here is now 2.5 times what it was in 2006. But because of Rebecca and I are getting better at farming, we're getting a little more efficient on certain things, because we are using lighter glass that is not expensive, no foils. Because of a number of things, we've actually managed to keep our cost under control. We're not driving fancy cars. We're driving, nice vehicles, an old beat-up truck, etc. So why should we charge $60, $80, $100 for a bottle of wine? It's not going to make Rebecca and I happier people. As you can see, we got a nice backyard already. I don't need to increase my prices. I want to make sure people get a bottle of wine. They'll open up Monday and Tuesday evening, and not just open it up on their anniversary or on their birthday.
Well, it is beautiful, and with all the ethos that you've got behind it, it's an incredible value equation in a state, Santa Rita Hills Pinot Noir, with the triple certification and all that love and passion there. That's really an amazing value. So I'm sure we'll get some people to take you up on that deal. It's $1,000 to ship a case, though, just so you know.
Of course.
It's not true. You guys visit the Ampelos website, join them, and make sure you make an appointment to go by and taste the entire lineup of wines that they make at Ampelos. There's some really beautiful things happening there. It's always great to get to Santa Rita Hills. And Peter, you're always fantastic. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Peter, my pleasure. My pleasure. I couldn't do it without you, buddy. Really nice team there, and it's just really awesome. And I'm loving the dog being so well behaved. Usually we've had some very interesting dog moments in the last month. I'm not sure if anybody was on the Zoom where we had the German Shepherd that sounded like a gun going off. That was pretty interesting. It was the most aggressive bark I've ever heard. But I hope you guys are enjoying, and we're working our way into wine 4. We're going to go to Wrath, and we're going to hang out up in the Central Coast. And we have Sabrine on the Zoom with us. Sabrine, how are you?
I'm well.
Always great to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see everybody else.
Here we go.
I'm actually sitting in my backyard in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And we'll talk about, when we get to the picture of the map, how weather works here. But I think Peter mentioned it and other people mentioned it. It's been an unusually mild spring. Not a lot of heat here. And which is really, and I'm in the Santa Cruz Mountains, especially can be quite hot. And it's been super temperate, super mild. We had, I guess, like Peter mentioned, I think we had 1 or 2 days where we got in the high 80s, low 90s, and that's been kind of it. So we are a little behind as well up here. Hopefully the shit won't hit the fan at some point and won't get super hot. You always worry, 17 was that crazy year we had the 2 heat waves back to back. We always have a little heat spike over Labor Day, which is normal, but when you get double weekends back to back in Santa Lucia Highlands in the hundreds, that's always a little bit scary. Wrath Winery, actually, our main property is in fact, the next picture, if you want to show the picture, this is our vineyard and our winery. It's actually in Monterey, AVA, but across the street where you might see some cows over there. That's the Santa Lucia Highlands. In fact, that's Bianchi Bench. And then south of me is Hahn, which is their doctor's vineyard. And north of me is Tendre, McIntyre, KW Ranch, Buchanugan. But this big hill that you see behind the winery is a big reason why we don't get a lot of rainfall there at the property. Where I'm sitting right now at my house, our average drought year here in the Santa Cruz, San Lorenzo Valley in the Santa Cruz Mountains is 35 to 45 inches in drought year. In a normal year, we're at 50 to 60 inches of rain. And in a crazy year, like 16 to 17, we had 110 inches here. Wow. And it's because if you guys know Bonnie Doon, which is on the other side of my hill where I'm sitting, that hill just isn't very high. In fact, I'm sitting, I think it's 400 or 500 feet. And so what happens is the storms that we get from Alaska pick up speed and they don't get high enough, and then so they're dumping all that rain in my valley that I'm sitting in. Here down at you see in the picture, the Santa Lucia Highlands, they're a lot higher. And what happens is that's why Big Sur is so wet, right? Big Sur is so wet because all the rain drops on the west side of the hill. Our average rain total out at the property at San Saba at Wrath Winery, 8 to 9 inches a year. Typically, a big year is 11, a drought year is 4, and we call that orographic lift. Okay, we get these storms typically from Alaska, and the other thing too is we usually get the little tail. We're never really sitting near the eye of the storm. We get the little tail that swings around and it dumps almost all the weather on the Big Sur side. So we just don't get that much rainfall. I have the luxury of time as a winemaker. The way I see it, I don't have to worry about rain typically. I think in 2009, we had a storm that came from Mexico and it was really, really humid out. It was in early October. And I wound up splitting up the Chardonnay pick because I was worried about the humidity. It felt like Costa Rica outside. It was very muggy, which is very unusual for us. This map that you're looking at, you'll see sort of the valley in the little small map on the bottom left. But basically we're looking west and the bottom is looking toward 101. In fact, that's Gonzales at the bottom. That's Highway 101 in the middle. And if many of you have driven through the Salinas Valley, you will know that that's where all the row crops are. This obviously used to be the bottom of the ocean. At some point, there is a big aquifer in the Salinas Valley. We're all drinking, you know, we've all talked about water. We're all drinking with our straws from the same aquifer. And of course, we all have to monitor our wells because their big concern is saltwater intrusion from the Monterey Bay. So we're pretty aggressive about that sort of reporting. We have to do a lot of reporting. If you see on this map, you'll see all the other vineyards I sourced from. I sourced from Buchanugan, KW. Tendre is what you have in your glass. You have the 18 Tendre, which is a lower elevation. It tends to be more gravelly loam and a little bit of granite. The closer you get toward the freeway, the more loamy it gets. Obviously, this was the bottom of the ocean at some point, but it's definitely a decomposition of the hillside of the bench and a mixture of those loamy soils from where a lot of the row crops are. Even our property, you'll see it's that dark maroon triangle that says Wrath. That's our property. Like literally we're just on the other side of the road from the Santa Lucia Highlands, and we're on quite a sloping area as well. So it's like the bottom of the bench. And then behind us, there's lettuce and broccoli and row crops. The one thing I would really ask for you guys to do next time you do drive down that way, or you happen to drive down River Road or 101, look up the hill above all these guys. Gary Francione has lemons and avocados. Kirk Williams of KW Ranch has lemons and avocados. Buchanugan, I know they have lemon crop. The one thing I love about this area is it's not a monoculture. We have row crops in the bottom. We have, actually there's a cactus field. There was a cactus field there. Dole had a packing plant for Nepalus there. A lot of lemons, a lot of avocados. I love that it's not a monoculture. It's really important to me in terms of diversity. And we talked about SIP, about diversity of the people that work with you, your neighbors, about the diversity that you have all around you is really important. I'm trying to think of anything else in this map that you want to, oh, there we go. There's us in the vineyard. We do a lot of experimentation. We do a lot of small 1 ton, 1.3 ton bin experiments. Every year I try to get at least 5. We always have 5 experiments slated. Sometimes 3 get off the ground. Sometimes, if we're lucky, 4. We always try to do early pick experiments. We're trying to pick some of these varietals early, Syrah and Pinot, and other things too. We have some Falangina on the property. The problem is often we're bottling right up to harvest. And so it's hard to, all of a sudden you're at 23.5 bricks and you wanted to pick at 21, and it's not exactly early pick anymore. So your experiment has to change a little bit, but we do a lot of whole cluster. Our baseline, even for the Tendre that you're drinking, is 20% stem inclusion whole cluster. It's a dilemma because the one thing if you taste other Tendre vineyard wines, he sells fruit to quite a bit of people. It tends to be a high pH vineyard in general. And I think that can be tricky when you're using a lot of stem because you're adding basically potassium, which is going to bind to acid, which is in the stem. So this has been my biggest sort of balancing act. And the thing I try to feel like I learn something new every year is that balance of when are you going to pick, how much stem are you going to include depending on when you got to pick. The other thing with Tendre and with a couple other vineyards I source from is they tend to pick later. And so if I'm full, I'm a small winery. If I'm full, I don't have any room to put it. I'm not picking, so it's tends to be our higher pH. Luckily we got a couple new tanks. And so now we're being able to pick this stuff a little earlier. But when you're small, a lot of the people on this Zoom are small. I'm not turning tanks every 6 days. I'm not turning tanks every 5 days. I'm letting these things ferment over 14 to 15 days. I'm keeping it pretty cool. We're doing a cold soak. We're trying to get good numbers. We're trying to get good maceration and good extraction, and not be picking at crazy bricks. So I want to pick at normal bricks and get good extraction from the process. We do inoculate. We use RC212. This is us off after blending day. The gentleman on the right is Michael Thomas, who is the owner of Wrath. He actually is an archaeologist. He has 2 digs in Italy, which I think are fascinating. And one of the digs that he has actually was a wine distribution center. They found pomegranates, so they know that they were tanning hides, and they actually found ruts. It was like a loading dock. They found wheel ruts in the stone, and they knew they were tanning hides as bladders to take down to put on boats. And they found a lot of amphora, a lot of pips. I don't know if he ever had the pips in the amphora tested, but just fascinating stuff that they're finding there. And I know they sort of done their data collection, and now they're doing all their analysis now on the couple of the digs that he has going in Italy. Just a really fascinating thing. Cool. This is our little winery. It's not very big. We have about 11 rows. We can hold about 60 to 70 barrels per row. We do have our own little bottling line, which makes life a lot easier, especially when you have 26 SKUs. I make 9 different Pinots or 10 different Pinots for Wrath. So, when I say that this tends to be our highest pH Pinot, I don't mind that, because I have other Pinots that are, it runs the scale, and it's sort of, it's nice to have something different for everybody. A lot of people who come into our tasting room who say they don't like Pinot like this wine because it tends to be a little bit silkier and smoother. It is 3 clones. It's Pomard 4, sort of that earthy, dirty. 115 is very structural to me, is very black cherry in structure. And then we have this 493 clone, which tends to add a lot of acidity. We don't make a lot. We make about 5 tons from Tendre. Great field. And of course, Tendre Allerid, who was Joe Allerid, who owns it now, his father, he was a row crop guy. So he didn't understand why we call it a vineyard. He wanted to call it a grape field because it's a lettuce field and it's an asparagus field. So there were grapes, so he wanted to call it a grape field. So that's why it's called Tendre's grape field. And we love that, what the heck, it's his property. He can call it whatever he wants. But anyway, that's all I have to say. I love this one. I think it's juicy. I think it's a lot of spiciness. Hermitage is one of my big go-to coopers, and I love them because I think it's more nutmeg and a little more, less cinnamon and vanilla, more nutmeg and clove, and even a little Szechuan peppercorn. I often tend to get in the new barrels, if you just taste them, a little bit of that tactile feeling you get from Szechuan or nutmeg, that sort of nummingness that you can get from oak, and I love that. This is our tasting room. We have a tasting room out at the property that you saw, and then this is our tasting room in Carmel by the sea. We're right next to the cheese shop.
Cool. How nice.
That's us. We actually did get a dusting of snow on the Santa Lucias this year, so it was really pretty. It's really unique weather there. Classic though, long, beautiful warm days and cool nights, and not a lot of rain.
Fantastic. It's great to catch up with Wrath. You guys do such an awesome job. And I love your haircut, by the way.
Thank you.
Good. And I really appreciate you tasting us on this gorgeous wine. Congratulations on the good score. That was very curious. I was very interested in what you said. I'd heard it before, but it really kind of clicked with me this time, though. The way that the stem inclusion, it's like almost adding potassium bonds to the tannins.
The acid, yeah.
And your acid, and you really kind of could be up against some challenges if your pH is already high, right?
Right. We do a lot of experiments. In one year, we have a lot of 828. We did literally on my lot sheet, you could see we did a whole berry, 25% stem, 50% stem, 100% stem. And I'm not kidding. The pH was like 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8. And it's because of that the potassium in the stem is binding. That was my hypothesis. Never read a research paper on it, but I asked Andy Walker, was my PI, and I asked him, and he's like, yeah, it's the potassium. I'm like, I don't know what else it can be, but there's a lot of potassium in stems, and it's very positive, and it binds to acid, which is very negative. So you just have to be careful. And when we started doing stem inclusion, we just, luckily they were small 1-ton lots, but when you start doing it as a philosophy, you need to just be really careful what you're picking at and what your acids are when you're picking.
Very nice. Wow. Well, great to see you. I saw some communications in the chat that some people are planning on coming up and seeing you soon. That'd be a good idea. It's one of the most beautiful places in California, and I haven't seen the other tasting room in Carmel. That's the other most beautiful place in California. That's really special. So a couple good reasons to get up and see Wrath, and make sure you say hi to Sabrine.
Please do.
Thank you so much for your time and energy in the delicious 2018, and that is available by purchasing it directly from the website at Wrath, and they welcome you to join their mailing list. They have some really awesome wines across the board. We're going to move into wine number 5, and we're going to stay in the Central Coast, and we're going to hang out with Tyler Russell.
Hi, Ian.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, feeling better and better by the second.
Nice. Yeah, you get some energy or third or second wind?
Yeah, getting the shot of espresso I had right before the event is starting to really kick in too. So that's
magic.
How are things for you?
Things are good. Just plugging along, keeping an eye on the sites. We're bottling a couple days before harvest, so getting ready for that, and just the usual July, August winemaker lifestyle, I guess. Pretending like I have time to do more before harvest when I really don't.
And what's your dog's name?
Oh, Clementine.
Clementine. All right. Cool.
Yeah, she might make an appearance here and there.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Well, I know you keep pretty busy. This is your Pinot project. Do you also make some rosé with this line?
We do make a rosé for this line of Pinot Noir, and we also make a Chardonnay as well for this label.
And you have another label called
Nell Winery. It's all Rhone focused. Actually, that was my original brand. I started that in 2006. Started Cordon in 2014 with the desire to make Pinot Noir.
And Nell has actually won our Rhone Wars competition in years past.
It's when the day I peaked. That night. That was when I peaked right there.
Right. Well, dude, you always impress. So
thank you.
Let's go in and check out what you're doing here with Pinot Noir. And
okay.
Here we are.
Yeah, so here we are, Cordant Winery. The word Cordant means to work in harmony. It's kind of a tribute to all the moving parts that go into this. There's more than just the winemaker and the site. There's a lot of things that happen in between, and if all those things are done well, the end product is usually pretty good. So it's kind of a tribute to that.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're pouring our Central Coast Pinot Noir. We make a handful of vineyard designates as well as our Central Coast, the sum of the parts we call it. And it's sourced from the San Lucia Highlands, where Wrath is located. Just north of them, we get from Escol Vineyard. And then into the south in Edna Valley, we bought some Pinot from Jesperson Vineyard for a few years. And then into the Santa Rita Hills, in this particular wine, there's some wine from the Kessler Hawk Vineyard there in the Santa Rita Hills. We also source from Radian there, and we also source from Biennacido and Solomon Hills in Santa Maria Valley.
Excellent.
Nothing from Paso Robles, which, if you know anything about Pinot Noir, you would know that that's not surprising. But for those that maybe don't, Paso Robles is not necessarily an ideal area for Pinot Noir, but given our central location between what I consider to be world-class places for this varietal, it actually makes it kind of an interesting advantage. I wouldn't say advantage, but it makes the varietal enticing for sure. We have our fair share of Rhone varietals in Paso Robles that set us apart from other places, and we source from plenty of those places. But for Pinot Noir, being right in the middle between, it literally is the same driving time to Escol that it is Santa Rita Hills. And so, yeah, it's a podcast drive away, as I say. Yeah, and so a little bit about the Central Coast. It's actually one of the largest regions. It spans from almost like San Francisco Bay Area all the way down to Santa Barbara County, some would say even Ventura County. It's the influence from the Pacific Ocean, as I'm sure has been touched on many times. It's not an uncommon theme when you're talking about Pinot Noir and why it grows in a particular area well, that the ocean effects is something that comes up. I mean, it just likes that cooler experience and the temperature swings. You know, it can get a little bit warmer, it can handle some heat, but as long as it can cool down at night, it really just saves it. The Central Coast, compared to maybe say Oregon where Tim was, which makes great Pinot Noirs, and I really enjoyed his, is in different from places like Burgundy, is our sunshine. And so we get 300 days of sunshine a year, which gives us an interesting set of tools for when we determine what ripe means. Because in my opinion, ripeness means something different, like every year, every place. Like it's about, you know, when you pick is about what that particular year has given you. And so like in a hotter year, you might have to watch it more. On cooler years, you can extend the growing season and push the limit a little bit, maybe without compromising integrity of acidity. But being where we are and having a Mediterranean climate and this coastal influence, you know, the sunshine combined with the cooler temperatures in some of these particular areas is really what sets us apart. So yeah, like I mentioned, Escol from the Santa Lucia Highlands, loamy soil, sandy soils, lower elevation, as you can see there, kind of as Sabrina was talking about earlier, like lower shelf of the Santa Lucia Highlands, right off the river road there. You could switch the slide there. There's a picture of the Escol Vineyard. You see that same mountain range she was speaking of. It really prevents rain from coming over. But one thing that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, from Raph, but one thing that's really cool about that mountain range and how it leads up to the Monterey Bay is that the fog that comes, basically the fog comes right into the Monterey Bay and just kind of hugs the bottom of that hill, that mountain range, and just that's why the Santa Lucia Highlands is such an interesting region, because it's like this really long, narrow, skinny kind of stretch of land where so many other regions are kind of vast and over different things. But this base of this mountain range is really what is like this, it's kind of this crazy little pocket. And that finger of fog is really distinct. In fact, one night I was dropping my boxes off at night for the pick, and I always try to get there a little early and just drink some coffee and hang out. And I'm looking at the stars, which is cool because, you know, sometimes in town you can't always see them, and you're looking at them and then you're like, oh, that's cool. And then I push all the bins off the trailer and stack them and all that. And I look back up and I'm like, where'd they go? And then it occurred to me, and then I kind of use my peripheral, and you can see that as you're looking into the distance, you can see that finger of fog come through, and it's kind of one of those like, oh, this is why this place is so cool. And it was kind of like humbling in a really cool way, seeing that happen. Yeah. And I was at that place when it happened. So yeah, next slide. And Jefferson and Edna Valley, same kind of thing, lower elevation, a little bit rockier soils, a little bit more like sandy, but like more rocky, more pebbly, very close to the ocean. In fact, some vineyards in this AVA, if they're, you know, it's just clear enough, you can actually see the Pacific Ocean, because they're 4 miles from it. Yeah, I didn't make these slides, so I'm kind of saying what I'm supposed to be saying. Yeah, 4 miles from the ocean, cool, right outside of San Luis Obispo. For those that travel through California, Edna Valley, there's a lot of really cool sites there, cool wines there. It doesn't necessarily get the foot traffic Santa Barbara County does or Paso Robles, but a really cool area. So yeah, next slide.
Your slides are good looking though, buddy.
Oh, you have to tell Amber next time you talk to her, because I had nothing to do with that. So yeah, that's a picture of Jefferson Vineyard apparently. Next slide. Kessler Hawk in the Santa Rita Hills. It's kind of on the 246 next to Clopepe, for those that have been explored the area. Very sandy soils, loamy patches. There's a lot of like basic elements of their soils in Santa Rita Hills too. A lot of diatomaceous earth and stuff, so in certain little veins, and definitely a little bit further to the ocean, you get more of that. But this particular site, you'll get occasional veins of that and chert and other evidence of ocean existence and whatnot, which is really cool. And those basic soils too, you get a lot of acid retention. So this is a site that can like really hang and not compromise itself much. Again, we're really focused on picking when it means it's ripe for that particular year, and so it means different things from time to time. But this is a site that traditionally comes off a little bit later, some of our other Pinot sites, and it never, although it may pack a big punch, it never has doesn't lack structure at all, which is really cool.
Cool. And this picture on the right here is your tasting room, which is where?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't see it. I can just see faces a little. There we go. Yeah, that's our tasting room. looks a little different now. We're always trying to move stuff around, and when we get bored every once in a while, we just start moving stuff. But that's the vibe there. Definitely pretty low key, trying to make it as relaxing as possible. That's a picture of the vineyard there. And if you ever find yourself in the Paso Robles area, we hope you stop by and visit us. But yeah, seriously though, if you're ever in Paso Robles, please come see us. We really love sharing wines with people and having a good time. And really, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. We try not to have too much of an agenda or what have you when it comes to making our wines. The idea is that we just want them to be delicious, but also have integrity and be able to stand the test of time, but not like making wines just in the name of that. Like, we want them also to bring pleasure and joy and be, delicious.
Cool. Who's the artist that you guys are showing off there?
That is my good friend, Jim App Roberts. He's an older gentleman. He lives in San Luis Obispo, and he paints out of his home studio. He does these really crazy, awesome, what's it called? Abstract kind of things on acrylics. And then his son, for our Nell brand, for those that may be familiar with it, his son actually does our label art for the Nell brand.
Oh, nice.
So so it's a family affair.
Well, it's showing really, really well. This is a $44 wine that you can buy from Tyler. And, are you able to cross-pollinate those two brands, or do you have different investors on both products?
Those two brands happen to be under one umbrella. So same, all back end is all the same. And we just do Pinot Chardonnay and Pinot Rosé under one, and then doing the Rhone thing separate. It's just kind of a fun, kind of two different expressions. It's two different like creative kind of places, too. So it's kind of nice to have different packaging, different messaging around it. It kind of makes it a little more exciting, and so it's also just one of those things you do when you think you can take on more. It's fun to do.
And what are you thinking of this year? Are things shaping up okay for you?
I mean, Paso specifically is a bit hotter than maybe some of the other areas that said, we had some heat waves. We had a little bit more intense heat waves, and we actually had some sunburn earlier than we like to see. We weren't able to get shade cloth out in a timely manner in some sites, but at the end of the day, like, we're going to do the best with what we get, because a lot of it we have no control over in the short term. We're just trying to make the right decisions to have good long-term effects on what is happening. But in the short term, we're just trying to roll with the punches and make the best wine that we can. I have one of my philosophies is there's potential in every vintage, especially in a Mediterranean climate, like we pointed out earlier. And that's kind of where we come from. This, like, what does ripeness mean this year? What does lignification and stems look like if we choose to use stems in those years? Like, it's all case by case basis, and based on those decisions and those thoughts, that's how you determine how you want to approach your extraction process and all those other things. Like, nothing we do is dogmatic, because we think that it requires a certain level of vulnerability and paying attention to what's in front of you to really do things what I maybe would say the right way, as arrogant as that sounds.
Julie wants to know, how many of the different vineyard sites that we saw, what percentages are you putting into this wine? Is it like?
It's pretty even. It's a little less of the Jesperson, so more of the Kessler Hock, equal parts of Kessler Hock and Espol, and then probably 30% of it is the Jesperson.
Okay, pretty close.
Yeah, or 20%. Yeah, 25%. So.
Well, it's great to catch up with you. Thank you very much.
Likewise, Ian. Thank you.
Volunteer. Always good to see you. And
likewise.
Hope the next time we see you is in person with a really fun tasting where we can give each other a fist pump. And thanks for being here tonight.
All the things, and we look forward to doing it in person for sure. I will say, though, you guys are doing this the best. I'll echo some of individual that said it earlier's words. Like, a lot of us have probably done many of these at this point, and whatever the ones you do are always the ones that are the most organized and flow the best, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very, very nice to hear. We've been very fortunate, and I'm just happy that you're happy. So thank you so much.
You, sir. Pleasure.
All right. Well, we've been tasting some great wines, and it's just a lot of fun to be able to get the insider information from the winemakers themselves, and learn about their brands, get some insight. You know, every single one of these is just a little bit different for a lot of reasons, and it's just, that's what makes the wine world go around. I love that. We're gonna go up to Sonoma now, and I'm really kind of pumped to be able to say your name. Sabah? Is that right?
It's Chaba.
Chaba. All right.
Chaba is more like CH instead of CS.
I see. Okay, so CSABA. So can you say your full name for me so I can hear the whole thing?
Absolutely. It's Chaba Sakal. I'm actually a fourth generation winemaker from Hungary. That's why it's so hard to pronounce.
Wow. You made it look easy.
Of course, easy for me.
Well, how did you end up in Sonoma?
Despite my wine-rich background in family, I became a computer programmer. So back in '96, I got a job in the Silicon Valley, and that's where I actually met my wife, Sandy, who grew up here in Sonoma County. And she was also working in the Silicon Valley at that time. And we had no plans to make any wine back then. It was just basically by chance. She introduced me to her friends that they grow grapes here in Sonoma. And next thing I know, I'm making wine in my garage. And
probably
that was
really hard, huh?
Absolutely, it was. It was very natural kind of start, just making wine for friends and family, and with each vintage, the passion really was awakened. That was obviously my genes, and in 2007 we finally started our winery under the En Garde name, and in 2007 I first only made a Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley, from Diamond Mountain in specific. And in 2008, I added the Pinot Noir. These are my two loves of grapes. I love them equally. I make about half and half of my production, Cabernet and Pinot Noir. And the wine we actually tasting today is from the original vineyard that I started making Pinot out of back in 2008. It's called the Starkey Hill Vineyard. It's planted by Diane Starkey just about 40 plus years ago. And she is actually best friends with my mother-in-law. They grew up together, and that's how the connections were made back then. I still don't have a contract for the grapes. It's just, family, and nothing is more beautiful than that.
That sounds
yeah, I know. It's I'm just really lucky to be able to make wine in really the best area for Pinot and Cabernet in the world. Like nowhere else you can actually make both varietals in the same winery. Only in California you can have these microclimates so close to each other. So that's very rewarding, and yeah, I would never imagine back then when I moved here that I would end up making wine, and this is really just a dream come true for us.
Beautiful. What side of the valley do you make your wine? Do you make it in Sonoma or Napa?
We live in Sonoma, as my wife grew up here. So our home is in Santa Rosa, and our winery is in Glen Island, which is just about 20 minutes from here. And it's very strategic. All our vineyards are within 45 minutes from our winery. Most of the time, it's only 30 minutes or less. And it's important to have the grapes in the winery as fast as possible, so we can have the best quality available for our crush, and it's all hands-on winemaking. we only use equipment when it's really necessary. I don't ever pump my wine. It's really important to be like super gentle, especially when it comes to Pinot Noir, and respect the fruit. So most grapes that I make are fermented in small bins and hand punch downs, and we when we press the grapes, we press directly into the barrels, which really enables us to keep these micro lots very unique and separate from birth. You know, being fermented in small bins and having that separation in the barrels as well allows to find those really unique and beautiful barrels that represent just a really small part of the vineyard. And so we could separate those and create a reserve program that way, and also to create a good example of the terroir of the vineyard as well. This vineyard was planted originally with clone 23, which is a Swiss clone, also called the Maria Fat. Super rare to find. It's really an interesting clone. Has a big mouthfeel and also a nice fruit component to it. And you can probably taste that already in the wine. And then a little bit later, they added a block of Pomard, which in certain years really brings a huge backbone and nice structure to the wine without compromising the elegance of the wine. So I really, I like to make this Pinot because it's fruity and fleshy, yet it still has some elegance that, is supposed to be part of the Pinot world.
Yeah,
and so it's been very rewarding working with this vineyard.
It does have a
Thank you. This year was especially a nice vintage for us. 2018 was rather mild, and the growing season was really extended. And so we could really get the fruit to the level of extraction and concentration of fruit that we really like from this vineyard. So that was a lucky coincidence, and it's beautiful to have this the wine in front of us. Being Hungarian, of course, I use some Hungarian oak. So this wine was actually aged in just about 20% new Hungarian oak, which just there to extend the wine. Hopefully it doesn't jump at anybody. And the creaminess that maybe that Hungarian oak and a little bit of a spice in the finish hopefully shows a little added complexity in the wine.
What's the difference between Hungarian and French?
It's technically the same oak species, and oftentimes I would say, what's the difference between a Cabernet that's grown in Sonoma versus Napa? It really is the local soil and climate conditions, but impact the wood itself. But ultimately, it comes down to who makes the barrel. The cooper really puts the signature flavor on it. And so I've been working with a lot of different Hungarian coopers, and I landed on a producer. It's called Kádár now. It used to be called Budapest Kádár. That was purchased by Taranso, and once that happened, they really overhauled the coopering process, which made it much more consistent and really delicious barrel. And I love using it for Pinots or Cabs as well.
I just muted you for a second so there's no feedback, but when I'm done here, just make sure you hit unmute. But I'm actually quite impressed. I mean, when I hear that the wine is in Hungarian oak or Slovenian oak or Russian oak, or there's usually something that's sticking out, kind of jagged or like a piece of the puzzle that doesn't fit. And this wine is just really, really beautifully accented by the wood. And I would have guessed it was just very expensive French oak. So you've done a really nice job, and I will have to look into this Cooper, because I think it's quite nice compliment to the vineyard.
So my AC came on, maybe that's what you heard.
Yeah.
I tried to turn it off, it should come off pretty soon.
You're good.
Yes, it's been really rewarding working with this vineyard, and we actually make Pinot from a lot of different vineyards all the way down south, from Carneros to up to Anderson Valley. And this is actually, I'm really happy to be part of this, because it's so educational to have all these appellations really showcased by all these wonderful winemakers. And it's so nice to see the different terroir and different approach on how to create a beautiful Pinot, which is very a personal journey for everybody, I believe. And it's, we've been getting very nice accolades and all that, but it really comes down to the person who actually tastes the wine. I believe the Pinot has the most amazing different expressions that you can imagine. Cabernet is a lot more defined what it's supposed to taste like, but with Pinot you have a lot more freedom that you can create. And I think a lot of people enjoy Pinot for the big surprises that you get from different locations, different producers, and variations even between vintages.
Here we go. It's having some repeating on it a little bit, but some beautiful scores for your 18s.
Right, and again, it's like we actually received as high as like 99 point for this vineyard in other vintages, and it's such a personal thing, I don't really want to put a huge emphasis on this, because once you taste the wine, it really just has to speak to the person who tastes it, and it's a personal journey for everybody. But I would like to point at the 777 cases that we actually produced of this wine, and I called it the jackpot. And it was totally by accident. We didn't design it that way. It was just when we tallied up at the end of the bottling, it was like magic. So I was quite getting a kick out of that.
Nice.
I don't know what the next. Oh, these are some reviews. Rusty Gaffney is he's the publisher of the Pinot file, and he's been graciously tasting my wines even when I had very small production, and I really value his opinion. And it's one of those things that maybe he's not the most influential wine critic out there, but when you have that kind of guidance throughout your career, it really it's beautiful to have that feedback, and I appreciate him very much.
I like some of his descriptions. Very nice.
Yes.
Toothsome fruit. I like that.
I know. So being fourth-generation winemaker, it has its advantages. I grew up basically in the vineyard. I learned how to make wine just being part of it. My grandfather and my father, this is actually my grandfather, Béla, back home in Hungary. I was just literally free labor. And you pick it up along the way, not being taught purposely, it's just part of it. It's so much in the middle of it. And it's something that imprints in you forever. And when I started making wine in the garage, of course, my first notion was like, I called my dad, like, so what's now? I crushed the grapes and it's still not fermenting. What's going on? You know, it's a process that, you know, you even forget what the timeline is and what's happening. And it's like walking, you know, you pick it up along the way so easily. And it really is, it's been great to have that support from my family. And our son is 10 years old now. We hope to hand it down to him. He shows interest, of course, but it's too early to tell, of course.
Are you making any Icarus in Hungary?
I'm sorry?
No, there's a little bit of feedback. Any Icarus Bekover? Is that how you pronounce it?
Oh, Agri Bikovir, yes. I actually made one in the garage.
Yeah? Oh.
which I couldn't use that name on a commercial label. It's protected by law, by the Hungarian government, which is very good that they did that. But it's obviously an infamous wine that we would translate as bull's blood. And it's a blend, kind of like a Bordeaux blend, but it's based on cake Frankish, which is in German it's called Blau Frankish, or it could be based on Kadarka, which is another Hungarian grape varietal. And it's quite interesting these days. A lot of great producers in Hungary.
Do you have a distributor in Southern California?
We don't. We have just a broker that helps us sell some wine. Most of our wine is not available for distribution. This is the only one we could actually entertain that situation. Our production is so small, usually 150, maybe 200 cases per lot. So most of the wine is only sold in our tasting room in Kenwood, which is in the heart of the Sonoma Valley. But it's, you know, we have a great following in the wine club that a lot of the wine is being shipped at twice a year or sometimes more often.
Well, it is a beautiful addition to our lineup tonight and really showing amazingly well. Any questions from our group? Sabah? Thank you so much. David K., how you doing?
We're good. I just wanted to let you know that when I finish a wine, I like to smell the glass because that's where I pick up the oak or not or whatever. And it's just smelling the empty glass. Mm-hmm. That oak is just beautiful. I don't know what, you know, it is really, like Ian said, it works so well with this wine, but it's just, I just want to smell the glass. It's just, it works really well. So congratulations, great wine. Glad you're able to get us some bottles.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Van Tuck, everything good over there?
Everything's great for me now. I'm a lot better now than I was before the tasting started.
Good to see you, man.
Mental space, education, and all have been furthered in the past couple hours, so I have no complaints whatsoever. Thank you, Ian. And thanks to all the producers and everybody involved. You guys all done a wonderful job, and the wines are fantastic. And they really are. So
cool.
That's my 2 cents.
I appreciate it, bro.
I just wanted to mention that I think that Word's Vineyard has Blau Frankish and like Cab Pfeffer and some stuff. I think he's out of Hollister. Word's W-I-R-Z. I know he has a lot of really interesting varietals there. I don't know if Ian, if you've come across some of that stuff.
I haven't seen any Hungarian varieties in California hardly at all. I mean, maybe my eyes just need to stay open a little bit longer to find them. But that I'm sure they're out there. I mean,
Yeah, I can ask Donald Words. Actually, I went to Davis with his dad owns Words Vineyard. I know they have some weird stuff, and I don't think they have a lot of anything, but it'd be interesting to find people doing single varietal things like that.
Yeah.
Limerick Lane here in Hillsburg have a little bit of Furmint, which is the base wine for the Tokayasu. Of course, they cannot make it into Tokayasu. We just don't have enough botrytis formed. Even in a humid year, it's just not enough. But they make a beautiful white wine with it, and unfortunately, it's just not enough for me to buy it. Very small production.
And the case with a lot of Hungarian wines is they don't get here. You have to go to Hungary to drink them. And this case with a lot of other countries.
Yes, and we produce a lot of beautiful rosés that people don't know. My grandfather exclusively only made rosé in his whole career, and it's oftentimes consumed as a spritzer, which is so refreshing in the summer. One of the best things you can do for, staying hydrated and still having a good time.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. The wineries would appreciate to hear from you. Even if you just join their mailing lists, go to the website, let them know that you tasted the wine, let them welcome you on a future visit. It's always good to be on the mailing list if you're going to be going to a winery. They'll take better care of you, knowing you and having a relationship with you. And I do encourage you to get out there and go to the wineries. They would love to see you, and that's how their world really moves around, is being able to, at least in this country, because we buy the wine directly from the winery and we can take it home. Can you sell the wine to your guests in New Zealand?
No, we can, but it does get pretty pricey to ship it over. But we do have a great website through Share a Splash, who sort of bring the wine in for us into California. So as long as it's able to be shipped from there are a few problems, of course, because the rules in each state are different, and of course we're not shipping directly, we're shipping via an importer. So
I have three of your wines. I love your wine so much. We have the Sauvignon Blanc, we have the Chenin, your Pinot. So you could just tell people to come to Merchant of Wine, and
absolutely. Yeah, it's a pretty good range. There's a few, and particularly our Sauvignons, and that Chenin is a really special little wine. Most of it heads over to the US, so there's plenty of that, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We have now completed our Stars of Pinot Noir for another year, but I don't know if there's been a year where I've learned quite as much as this one. About the grape variety, about the different areas, and about some really awesome new producers. Coming down the pipeline, we continue to produce these Zooms till the end of the year. We are starting to do a few live events. They're now posted to our new website. We have pivoted back and forth so many times, I can't even remember what day of the week it is right now. But I just want to show you, if I can, the new website, which is called Wine Cloud Inc., which is kind of our old name. We brought it back because now we've fully developed so many different ideas that we wanted to celebrate that a little bit. So we've got a new master calendar with activities now being broken out. This is literally was posted today, so if there's any mistakes on here, we haven't quite inspected it to the nth degree. But this will show you both the live events and the Zoom events. But anything under Learn About Wine is now going to be considered our online or Zoom-based education. Wine LA will now take over live in-person events because we're here in Los Angeles, and we're doing some fun things all over LA by the time we're done. But right now we've just got one location that we're teaching classes in, and then we're celebrating a couple events at the Hollywood Bowl. Stars of Wine events will live here, and our next one is the Stars of South Africa, which we have fully developed now, and it is on sale. You'll be able to join us for an incredible evening for $39. And I will say that the wine list is quite exceptional. These are some of the best brands. Their price points go all over the board, from $20 to $80 for these wines, but they are the best of breed. And we're going to have the importer and the wineries on the Zoom to be able to talk about all things South African. And it's really going to be a special night. I hope you guys will join us, because South African wines represent some of the greatest value in wine in the wine world. And you're going to be floored by how good some of these wines are. I'm hoping to introduce you to some of them, but I'll tell you right now, the Bates and Sauvignon Blanc is probably the best-selling wine on our website for the past 2 years. And so I'm a very, very big believer in the category. I've been to South Africa many times, and I think that the wine region down there is as magnificent as the picture. So please join us again for the Stars of South African Wine, and check out the website for other activities. And I hope everybody has a great week. Well, we'll be back with our Zoom into Wines every Wednesday going forward. We have some really fun Zooms every Wednesday at Zoom into Wine, and those are all purchased through our retail partner, the Merchant of Wine. All the wines that we showcased, you either can access them through the email that gives you a special link to them that you saw today, or the brochure on the email that has the link. The price points that we have on the website are really aggressive, and that includes last night's wines too. We're going to keep those prices until tomorrow now, because some people are combining some orders. We did have quite the run on the rain wine from last night, and it is sold out at this time. If you want some, email me, because I'm trying to get more from the winery, but when you get 99 points from James Suckling, it tends to disappear pretty quickly. And so we're waiting to hear. But if you email me, I will put you on a list, and if I get more, I'll let you know. With that, thank you all for your participation. Check out the silent auction, Greg. It'll stay open until 9 o'clock tomorrow night. If you're bidding, you'll be alerted that you've been outbid, right, Greg? That's how it works?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great platform that you found, ianbetterworld.org. Everybody bidding, they get an email saying that they've been outbid. Very easy to go back in and raise your bid. We have 11 great bidders winning on some stuff. And don't forget, there's more than just wine on there, so check it out. Again, stays open till tomorrow, 9 p.m.
Is there a trip or something on there right now?
There's tons of stuff. If you want to, we have Zoom cooking classes. If you want to learn to cook some pastry, some seafood, some vegan, some Italian food, we've got some Zoom cooking classes on there. Yeah, great trips. Just check it all out. Again, there's great stuff on there. Runs till tomorrow night, 9 p.m.
I always go through right before it closes and just keep the auction honest. So if any of the producers have a wine that's under market, I'm going to devour it. So,
and it's funny that you said about that rain wine, Ian, because that's getting a lot of bids in the auction. So
yeah, I mean the guy's killing it right now, and his wines are selling out with incredible speed. So if you enjoyed that last night, we have sold out. We do have the higher end wine on the website still, if you want to try his single vineyard. But that's about all we have, and we only have about 6 bottles of that. So it is with that. I'll just say goodbye, because we are going long, but we want to thank everybody for staying on with us, and I hope the producers had a good time. And please do support them and come back and see us all really soon. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.